Welcome to Last Call Sunday, March Madness edition. We've got a star-studded lineup for you guys per usual. We've got Gianni the Greek coming up here up the top of the hour. And then we've got the guys from the Morning Wager. We're going to do a little three-box action here and see if we can't have a little fun on this beautiful Sunday morning before tip-off. So if you guys have a question for Bryan Power, Mark Zinno, or VR, please drop it in the chat. Also forgot to text Art to Caesar from the Westgate Superbook to get needs. So let me do that right now. Let's see. What do we need today? But first, let's bring in VR. We're going to talk some of these games. Yesterday was rather uneventful. Once again, VR. Yeah, Arkansas got the outright win. But overall, I loved BYU. They had a nice, fairly easy winner. We saw some favorites choke there late. That was kind of interesting. And I was really shocked to see a couple of dominant performances from a couple of other teams. This morning, I decided to throw a little flyer on 50-1 Arizona. I don't have anything coming out of that bracket. I've got Florida and Tech coming out of.
The horse I'm riding is Auburn. I have Auburn from when this tournament started. I still like Auburn now. I think their path is not the easiest, but I think it's very manageable to make it to at least the Final Four, if not the championship game. So that's what really sticks out to me. I more or less going game by game and haven't really seen nothing really jump out as far as the futures. My advice is, because now we're past that first round, we're about to have the Elite Eight before you know it. Bottom line, I think you got to look to the top. You got to look to the number one ranked teams, number two ranked teams still in there. Because the truth is, historically, that's who cuts down the nets. Now, every once in a while, you get that Cinderella that gets to the Final Four, but they don't win. They don't win. That's the difference. We rarely see those bottom seeds, once you get past the 5, the 6 seed, to actually cut down the net. Now, there's the argument you could build a lot of equity, but the problem with that is when teams like that get to the Final Four, or maybe even luckily get to a championship game, they're so heavily, they're such the underdog that to hedge it is a lot harder. Like it's easier to hedge when you have a favorite, even like when you're even trying to work a middle or trying to scalp it. If you have the favorite, it's easier to come back and hedge with the dog. But when you have a dog, and especially it's a long shot dog, and it gets there, and now the favorite's a 7, 8, 10-point favorite in that game, the hedging becomes almost impossible. It becomes very difficult to put up that kind of money line action just to try to earn some money off that equity. You're more or less forced in a position to let it ride. And again, we just know historically those long shots aren't going to get you the money as far as winning the national championship, even though there's randomness because it's one game. It's not a 5-game series, 7-game series where the cream has time to rise to the top. It still does. You know, historically, if you're betting the top 3 seeds, you're going to win a lot more national championships than betting seeds below the 3, over the last 20 years, last 40 years. It's just in college basketball and college football, those elite programs tend to get the elite athletes, tend to get the guys that are going to be playing Pro Bowl next year, the year after that, where some of these teams, they don't have a single player that's going to make it to the NBA. And I think if you're going to ride a horse to the championship game, you got to go with someone that actually does have a chance of winning it and stick to the top 2 seeds, maybe throw a 3 in there. But that's my advice. And fortunately, I have my biggest bet was on Auburn, and they're still alive. I'm not sure what the rate, the price is right now on Auburn. Let me look right. Where is Auburn? Right?
Auburn should be close to the top of the list there, VR.
Still 5-1. You can still get 4.5-1 right now on Auburn. I
Absolutely.
like that. I mean, look, Duke at plus 250 is not giving you anything. You can't take Duke, even though they're arguably the best team, obviously, power rating wise. Them and Florida, I think anyone you ask.
Do we think that they're the best team? This is where it gets really convoluted for me, right? Because I've been making SEC jokes about, hey, guess what? Big 12's been rocking and rolling outside of the University of Kansas, okay? The Big 10 has basically been undefeated against the spread except for Wisconsin last night. And the ACC's gotten their asses kicked, and so has the SEC. So, yeah, we can say Duke was the number 1 overall seed, but are they really power ratings wise? Like, do you guys update your power ratings this deep into the tournament?
Yeah, here's what I got. I just got these sent actually late last night, and here's what here's what it looks like to me. It looks like Auburn is the best offensive team out of the 1 seeds. The Florida's right behind them, so it's number 1 and number 2. Defensively, Houston is the best team, followed by Duke. The reason I say Duke's on top is because they're the most balanced, where they're top 3, top 4 offense and defense. Where with a team like Auburn, my guy has Auburn, number 1 offensively, but he has them 8th defensively in the country, where he has Florida number 2 in as far as offense goes, but defensively he's got them about 10th. So that where Duke, they're top 3 offense, top 3 or 4 defense. I think they're the most balanced team that's remaining from the number 1 seeds, and I think that's why you're not getting much value as far as a future bet. Plus 250, I think you may get a chance to make more money rolling it over into that championship game, especially if they end up playing one of the top seeds. I don't think they'll be that heavily favored against any of them unless somebody sneaks in there. A long shot gets in there. But when I look at the long shots, other than maybe Alabama at close to 20-1, I really don't see much jumping out. I mean, Tennessee 16-1.
What do you think about Arizona Duke? If it ends up being so, Duke beats Baylor today, Arizona beats Oregon today. What do you think the line will be? Kind of a look ahead style, and maybe that's a question for somebody at the Superbook. But I'm thinking like 6.5,
7,
maybe at worst.
On the power 7, yeah, about 7. Okay. Duke about 7, and I think also obviously the book's not going to try to predict the outcome. They're going to have to factor in some recency bias. They're going to have to factor in what the public narrative is, because again, their job is to balance money and minimize risk. It's not to predict the exact points, or else the number will land on it and they'll push all the time if they were that good. So I think they would probably. At this point, I think because of how Duke looked in that opening game, I think you'd be looking at Duke 7.5, right around there. And I think that they'd let the market decide whether they're going to push it up or push it down. Because I think where Arizona, they have the offense. I think it's defensively that they're going to find problems. And, they say it sounds cliche, defense wins championships.
It absolutely does, though.
Exactly. There's some cliches that are factual, and it does. And that's what worries me about Auburn, that I'm not sure they have the defense to compete with a number 2 Florida, a number, top 5 in Duke offensively. Now, again, they've been tested throughout the season. They could beat anybody, obviously. But I think that's where the deficiency lies. And the truth is, when I look at this board and I'm trying to see based on the power ratings, where I would bet Alabama at 20-1. I really would. I think Alabama is still a top 5, top 6 team. I think offensively, they're going to give anybody a headache. Most will have them as top 5 for sure offensively in power ratings. It's the defense that's the problem. Another spot where the defense has the problem, unlike like an Iowa State team where they're defensively sound. It's just the offense is why they're 30-1. You got to be able to score as well. But that's the one that jumps out at me really right now. Looking at the power ratings and then looking at what the odds are, I would look there. And I do like your Arizona. Because 50-1 is ridiculous. They should be around that 25-1 range as well.
You're right about the rollover. The rollover is the play. But the thing is the rollover – you can stop whenever you want to, right? Versus betting the futures bet. But I got a little overzealous. My group chat and I this morning decided, all right, we're going to take a flyer on this Arizona team. I do think that they have the ability to be able to spring the upset with Duke, but here we haven't seen any upsets yet. Like, we just haven't. Not anything prolific, right? We didn't see any double-digit upsets in the first round. Kind of disappointing. We saw some scares. Alabama had a scare there for a little bit. First half, Michigan State had a scare, then went on a tear second half. Auburn had a scare for a little bit last night and then was able to pull away late. Houston even had a scare. I have Houston 10-1, and we're doing the rollover there. Also have the futures bet to see which one is actually going to have more of a profit. And I thought, how on earth is Houston going to blow this game? Talk to me about maybe some of the other teams that you think we should be looking at to maybe spring the upset, maybe not win the whole thing. Right now, I don't see any books, and I'm sure there are some, at least not any that are at my disposal right here on my desktop, that you can bet Final Four or Elite Eight, but maybe a team that has the opportunity to spring maybe one or two upsets and then end up losing in the Final Four or the national championship.
You brought up a great point as far as the rollover. Real quick, I just wanted to touch on that because it's great in theory, tough in practice. Because we always say, start with $100, roll it over 10 times, and you're at $100,000 or $1 million, whatever the math is. Dude, once you get to like that $100,000, are you really going to roll that over on one shot? If you get to that $500,000 and you turned $100 into $500,000, are you really now going to roll that over and try to win that million because your goal was I'm going to win 10 in a row, 9 in a row wasn't enough for me? Like again, there's the real world, and then there's the online world, you know what I mean? Where it sounds great, just like with getting equity instead of locking in profit. As far as the upsets, I agree with you 100%, but that's what happens historically. We all talk about the big upset that happens in March Madness, how Cinderella shows up year after year. And yeah, when the 16 beat a 1 for the first time in 50 years, we talk about it like it's the biggest deal. But again, it did happen only once in like 50 years. When a 2 beats a 15, a 3 beats a 14, something along those lines, we talk about it as a huge upset. But they're extremely rare because the math plays out like this. Over the last 20 years, if you just took the higher seed team, they won a little higher than 70% of the games. They've advanced. Just the higher seed, they win 70+%, 7 out of 10 times. So like just taking that higher seed team, if you're like, that's why they say if you're in a small pool where there's like 10, 15, 20 people, don't try to find the upset. Don't try to find Cinderella. Simply go with the better team, the better ranked team. Most are going to do that and screw up their brackets. Where if you're going to hit 7 out of 10 historically by taking the higher seeded team, putting yourself in that position in those kind of pools, you're going to win it 1 out of 3 times. So every couple of years, you're going to be able to take it down just by doing that. Now, again, a team that jumps out just because of power rating wise, I'm just comparing it to power rating. And I have like Iowa State, Arizona, Tennessee. Those are all top 10 teams power rating wise. And Arizona is giving you the best number and I think has the most legitimate shot. And it'd be even better number than Iowa State, which to me is a little bit surprising. I mean, again, my guys got Iowa State like one position above Arizona. So they're comparable, but the payout isn't. And I think that has to do with the road, obviously, getting to that championship game. And the one that sticks out the most has to be at 20-1 Alabama, at 50-1 Arizona. I mean, I can't see the longer shots, even like teams like Maryland, which is like 40-1. I mean, it's a team that's top 30 barely in offense. They got a top 10 defense for sure, but offensively, they're top 30. And then you look at like another sexy team that everybody's talking about right now, trying to take that long shot like, oh, is St. Mary's going to make a run? Is Illinois going to make a run? I just don't think those kind of teams have the defense, especially Illinois. I mean, they're barely a top 50 defense. St. Mary's, barely a top 50 defense. Neither of those teams, I think, have a shot at winning a national championship. In fact, both of them would be double digits on a neutral court against Duke, against Florida almost. They would be double-digit dogs against them. And again, if you're rolling it over and you have a big ticket like that, God bless you. I hope you hit it. I just think possible, yes. Probable, no. I think if we're talking probable, that's where I would narrow it down to. I would look to Arizona because I think they're undervalued here at 50-1. I would look to Alabama because they definitely have a legit shot. I think they're legit. Otherwise, Florida, Duke, they're giving you absolutely nothing. Tennessee, I would think, was hoping would give me a little bit more as well. Top 5 defense, I love it, but you got to be able to score. They're barely a top 20 offense on Tennessee. That's the problem. And you're only getting 15, 16-1 on Tennessee. I'm trying to look at even longer shot, and I can't get there. I can't get there with Texas Tech. I can't get there with Purdue, because Texas Tech, again, they could score. They got a top 5 offense. We all know that. But they're barely top 50 defensively. And maybe in one game, that offense is enough to get you a win against a ranked team. But to pull it off in the Elite Eight, then in the Final Four, then in the championship game, I think it's a huge uphill battle that I just don't see happening. Again, any of those teams could get to the Final Four. Possible, one of those lower seeded that get in there. We see it all the time. We've seen it with VCU. We've seen it with George Mason. But at the end of the day, they all get sent home. They don't get to cut down the net. It rarely ever happens if it does. I remember Villanova. I'm from Philly. Back 83, Villanova beating Georgetown. Like, that was not supposed to happen. So it does happen. But I still remember it. And it was 40 plus years ago. It was that long ago in 85, whatever that Villanova did it. Exactly 40 years ago, Villanova beat Georgetown as what were they, an 8 seed or something like that. So not it doesn't happen, but if you got to wait 1 out of every 40 years and you're only getting 50-1, you're not making money off that bet if you're doing it every year. So stick to those ones around 20-1 if you need a flyer. But I do I'm going to bet your Arizona, because 50-1 is just way too high. I have a book right now giving me 51-1. And I am going to even throw a little flyer on Alabama, because he's got 20-1, and I don't think they should be 20-1 right now.
All right. A little buy low there on a couple of teams. Here's the text from Art DeCesar. He said the Sharps played Michigan State at 7, now up to 7.5. They also played Maryland -7, now up to 8. I do like Colorado State today. He said the house player that bet a couple totals yesterday is back. He has 5-figure bets on the under 152 in UConn, and the under 170.5 in the Kentucky-Illinois game. He said pretty public sides, Arizona and Florida for today. And his favorite play, which I also played, Ole Miss +5.5.
I always stop to write down. I love that you feed that in during the segment that I'm on. I was hoping that would be the case again today, because that's gold. That's pure gold. You're getting it from a guy who's telling you the truth. Like, he's telling you exactly what he's looking at his screen, and he's booking people, not just from here in Vegas, from all over the country, all over the world. So he's getting so many opinions, and the sample size is huge. And then you have some house players that they're able to bet big money because they probably dropped some money at the table historically, and they get those bigger limits where I know you couldn't go in there and bet 50 dimes on a college basketball total.
No, I could not. They're not going to let me do that.
I know most people couldn't go in and bet 50 dimes on a college basketball total unless, you're a house player, like they say, with all due respect.
Player, but I think they want to know who you are.
They're idiots.
Yeah.
You can't. You're betting 50 dimes a game. You're not an idiot if you have that kind of money. Maybe you're not astute as a sports bettor. You're not a plus EV bettor, but you're sure as hell not an idiot. You don't have that kind of money to gamble if you're a fool. That's how I look at it.
Very good point. VR, any confirmation on any of those sides from Art that you've seen behind your computer screen before we let you go?
100% Arizona and Florida already one-sided. Followed by Alabama. That's what worries me about betting the future on Alabama. They're so one-sided right now. I thought this line would be up to 6.5 by now. I'm talking, it's the heaviest bet game. It's not the earliest game. The back end I'm looking at right now, it has almost double the amount of volume of every other game on today's slate as far as the Sweet 16 goes. And it's got almost 7 out of 10 bets money-wise and like 8 out of 10 ticket-wise. So obviously some money's come in on St. Mary's to offset the ticket balance. But Alabama really sticks out. I agree with him as far as Arizona. I agree as far as Florida. We didn't bet it, but a guy that sends me stuff, they took the Michigan State side. So I can confirm with certainty that Michigan State is a sharp side. That's why that line moved up. And real quickly, a couple other games that are not Sweet 16. But we have CBI, we have the NIT, 890 Northern Arizona +4, 3.5, and 3, and the over 149.5, 150 against Queens NC. 876 over 143, 43.5. Loyola Chicago, San Francisco. 885 over 145 and 146. Manhattan, Incarnate Word. And then in the Sweet 16, 860 under Connecticut, Florida, along with the house player. So wise guys and house player on the same thing. At 864, we talked about Michigan State already. And the over. Here's what happened to Michigan State real quick. They steamed it over 146.5. When it got to 149, it got hit under. So another group disagrees. Up there, 150, we like the under. They blasted under. It goes down to like that 146.5 range, 147. That group that got down first, I know because someone that bets for them sent it to me. They hit it again. So they have a ton of conviction on the over in the Michigan State game, even though there's another group out there that brought the line back by betting that under 149. I thought that was interesting. And last but not least, 866 under Mississippi, Iowa State, 866 under 146 Mississippi, Iowa State. Those are confirmed sharp. I didn't bet them. I haven't bet a single play. I released 2 Austrian hockey games to my subscribers. Listen, if there's value, we're going to bet it. And it happened to be an Austrian hockey this morning. We didn't get down yet on these Sweet 16 games, but that'll change. Again, the lines get tighter as the tournament progresses. So as the line gets tighter, sometimes they sit back. When the public knocks it out of whack, then we get involved. And sometimes because it's concentrated just a small amount of games, there's really no rush. The money's going to come in on those games because it's not now 4 games playing at that time. It's 1 or 2. All the money comes in. That money helps move the lines a little bit. And then you see a lot of sharps come in and sweep up the value. I like Ole Miss. You agree with Art. I like his Ole Miss play.
Yeah, I released Ole Miss as well over there on my X page. I'm not going to lie. The dogs have not been doing the greatest for me. Every time I like a favorite, do well. Every time I like a dog, doesn't do well. It's kind of opposite of football season. VR, thank you for hanging out with us all week long. I know we'll be back Wednesday for Bet On It to get some steam action for the Sweet 16. And also, you'll be joining us next weekend for those games as well. Let's bring in the guys from the Morning Wager, Mark Zinno, Bryan Power. Talk a little action. I know you guys have why are you wearing a ridiculous hat? Okay. So anyway, we're going to take some questions.
I thought this was the official hat of WagerTalk.
I have no idea. I have no idea. I'm going to have to start implementing a dress code like back in 2016 when I first started here. Bryan Power might be muted. Okay. Well, he'll be on next week. So anyway, all jokes aside, guys, let's get to some questions in the chat. We've got 8 games today. We're starting off Florida. UConn tips off here in just a little bit. And I don't know. I bet Florida first half. Ski Prophet and I were talking the other day. He said, hey, I think I found some value here. And I said, I think you're right. I don't want to lay the big number here with the Gators. But also, I've got a futures bet on the Gators. Should I be worried about the back-to-back national champs, Bryan Power? Like, should I be a little concerned? Is this the time to start hedging my 40-1?
Well, Kelly, as you guys discussed, in great detail in that opening segment, there have not been a lot of big upsets in this tournament. As a matter of fact, we have yet to see a single underdog of 8 or more pull an outright upset in this tournament. Only 5 of the 14 have even managed to cover the spread, and 4 of those 5 were 15 and 16 seeds, where you're talking about huge spreads. But I do lean to the UConn side here. Obviously, this is the 2-time defending national champion. They've covered 13 straight NCAA tournament games, including the one against Oklahoma on Friday. And they have not been an underdog of this size, Kelly, in the tournament since the 1999 final when they beat Duke outright. So Florida, by the way, one of the 5 big favorites of 8 or more, I should say, that did not cover in the opening round. Of course, they were massive favorites against Norfolk State. But slight lean to the dog for me here, but Florida probably advances still.
BP, I have one other question in regards to this Connecticut team. Does it ever bother you? Like, I follow all of these, we'll call them like sportsbooks reporters. I know every once in a while I share information from the Westgate Superbook, but like John Ewing, right? Works for BetMGM. Every day he's got a myriad of tweets. Does it ever worry you when you see that the biggest bet underdog, UConn, is the number one money line play for the day. Like that actually almost gives me solace in thinking that right now I do not need to even worry about this Florida matchup, even though they're a very public side against the spread. They're probably in no danger of losing.
I don't know. Sometimes it does. I mean, sometimes those are right. Sometimes those are wrong. In this instance, look, I mean, Florida, it's interesting that to me, UConn, as much as they're not as good as they were the previous 2 years, getting 9.5 does seem like a lot. You would think if everyone was running to bet UConn plus 9.5, maybe I'd be totally running from the side, but it doesn't seem like they are. It seems like they're willing to lay it with the Gators. And honestly, I think Florida's the weakest of the 4 number 1 seeds. That was not the conventional wisdom coming into the tournament. But
He's wrong.
I don't know. I value at the current number.
Go ahead, Zinno. You have something to say about my Florida Gators. That's not what I want to hear, right? Like I was going to ask VR at what point in time I should start hedging. I know today is not the day to start hedging, though.
Today's not the day to start hedging. No. I mean, listen, Bryan Power doesn't know anything. I work with him every single day, so anything he says, you don't need to listen to. The Gators might be the most complete number 1 team out there. So let's leave it at that. Yes, they are. They are a machine. That said, again, I lean Connecticut with BP. This number is just too big. Look, you get to a point here. When you talk about the 1 seeds, again, their biggest challenge isn't getting through the first game. It's getting through the second game where, they get this step up in competition. And look, I'll give the decided coaching advantage to UConn over Florida. That matters. That's going to matter in this game. I would also tell you, too, correlated, under in Connecticut, over in Florida. Because the only way Connecticut keeps this thing close is to keep Florida from scoring 90, right? Like that's kind of what the game script is for the Huskies. So again, I don't think you need to start hedging on Florida yet. I don't know. Yes, Connecticut can win this game. I'm not saying they can't win the game because all it takes is one lackluster performance, right? We've seen it from teams already. Look at St. John's. They weren't a great shooting team, but when you shoot 25% for the game, you're going home. So if Florida is only shooting in the low 40s for the entire game, they could be going home, right? Like when your shooting percentage drops off 7 or 8% from what your season averages are, there's a chance you could be going home. So Connecticut could win this thing. I don't think it's likely. I don't think you need to start hedging yet.
All right, let's take some more questions from the chat, or we can just start going down the list. Let's go Baylor Duke. Currently right now on the odds logic screen, Duke is 12.5, total 144.5. Baylor Bears kind of surprised me the other day against Mississippi State. I thought they played a really nice, complete game. Basically, even though the spread was in play several points in time, I thought Baylor showed a lot of grit in that game. I thought defensively they were able to step up. Pretty much, look, Scott Drew's teams have historically been better. This is one of his worst teams I've seen. Is the Big 12 better? Are they getting worse? That's a great question. They can't defend the 3 ball. But my thought process is Duke going to win this game in a high-scoring fashion, or do we need their defense to step up? If it's going to be a lower-scoring game, 12.5 seems like a lot.
Well, here's the thing, okay? Number one, believe it or not, Baylor probably has the better backcourt, and that matters in these tournament games. So there's that. I would tell you, too, you guys know, and everybody knows my philosophy here, Baylor first half plus the points. If they ain't covering early, they ain't covering late. There's not a world where I think that Duke leads by 9 or 10 at half, that Baylor crawls their way back into this thing, right? Without some anomaly happening, like, watching Texas A&M shit their pants yesterday and crap the bed in the second half of that game in the final 13 minutes. Without some sort of anomaly like that, there's no way that I think Baylor can climb back in after trailing by nearly double digits at half. So Baylor plus the points first half is where I would go. I like taking dogs first half because I don't trust them full game. But there's a reason to believe why Baylor has the better backcourt here, and that could keep them in this thing early. Over the course of 40 minutes, though, when you start to look at Duke's offense, the real question is can Baylor's defense continually stop them possession after possession down the stretch?
I will say that first half underdogs have been very good. If you like the favorite, it's been better to wait till halftime. Bryan Power, let's go to the next game because it doesn't seem like there's a lot unless you have anything you'd like to button up on that Baylor-Duke game. This is the game that I think is the most intriguing. Go ahead.
Just one thing. Obviously, Kelly, I don't need to tell you, you want to have a belief that if you're taking an underdog, they have a chance to win. I don't think Baylor's going to win this game. They are a hard team to evaluate because the injuries. I will say this, and this applies to several games today. Teams like Duke that won their first round game by 20 or more against an opponent that did not win their first round game by 20 or more, you want to fade the team, i.e. Duke in this situation, off the blowout win. I think it's 23-41-1 ATS since 2013, that spot for Duke right there. So history says take the points in that game.
All right, I wanted to lay the 1.5 with Illinois, and now we're starting to see 2.5s pop up on the odds logic screen. Illinois is a 6 seed, laying points against Kentucky, who is a 3 seed. You guys always know how fun that is. 168.5 is the total. I mentioned John Ewing earlier on the show because Kentucky is the number one bet underdog. Obviously, small underdogs have done well in this tournament. Big underdogs have not. Talk to me about this matchup with Illinois, Kentucky. Again, I missed the boat. If it was still 1.5, I would have laid it. I thought, you know what? We'll wait and see what halftime looks like, and maybe I'll jump on that Illini bandwagon.
Yeah, coming into the tournament, Kelly, I thought Kentucky was a team that was going to lose in this spot, regardless if they played Illinois or Xavier. It's a big line with, like you mentioned, though, we've already missed the best number. I got burned on a money line play. Zinno referenced it earlier, A&M yesterday, so I'm not really rushing now at this price. So what's interesting, and I think you referenced the total at the top of the program, Kelly. This total, 170. It's the fourth highest total we've ever had for an NCAA tournament game, which is pretty interesting. Kentucky cannot defend. That's the whole thing. Kentucky's banged up and they don't defend well. So I don't want to play them. I just think you missed the boat on Illinois, and I don't know if I want to play a money line minus 135. I guess if you twist my arm and forced me to make a play in this game, that is what I would do. Obviously, the Big Ten has done very well in this tournament, 10-2 straight up and against the number. So just a slight lean to a line money line because that's how I viewed it at the start of the tournament. And Kentucky, even though they were better against Troy than I thought, didn't show me enough to convince me that I would want to bet them to win this game.
Yeah, that brings up a good talking point, right? Yesterday I tweeted, well, look who was right. Only 10 SEC teams should have got in. And Zinno was the first one to chime in and say, all right. Like, hey, listen.
You can't spell suspect without SEC. There are 4 SEC teams that are worth backing in this tournament. Florida, Tennessee, Auburn, and who am I missing? Bama. That's it. The rest of them, suspect. And I'm on an island today, and I don't care. I like Iowa State. I don't care what VR says. I don't care what anybody else says. Everybody else is on Mississippi. Great. They're suspect. I like Iowa State today.
Okay. All right, we'll get into that game. We'll get into that game here in a minute, but let's go back to this because Big Ten teams, not named Wisconsin, Big 12 teams, not named KU, have done really well in the tournament so far. Do you guys think we're going to start to see some regression to the mean? That's kind of my other caveat here with Illinois is like, man, the Big Ten has looked really good. The Big 12 has looked really good. The SEC, not so much. The ACC, definitely not so much, not named Duke.
I would say this, the Big Ten's had a lot of favorable matchups, I think, to get to that great ATS record. We saw, Wisconsin's basically a pick'em game against BYU. What happened to them? And I thought Wisconsin, for the record, I don't editorialize much. I thought they played one of the dirtiest and cheapest 40 minutes of basketball I've seen in recent memory. Had they stolen that game, that would have been a crime against humanity. And I got 4 more words for the state of Wisconsin, Zinno. Finish the damn beer.
Oh, God. Wow. Okay.
Okay.
Strays all over the place here.
All right. Listen, I was on BYU yesterday. I was very happy with the result.
So was I
would have liked to have had them play a little bit tougher down the stretch. I was like one eye in it. I was like, I gotta go to bed. I'm exhausted. Got to work tomorrow.
BP and I talked about this. Is a BYU team I've bet on a lot this year and backed and made some good money on and bet against them in certain spots. The thing with BYU, and here's the handicap going into every contest. At some point, they're going to have a bad 3-point shooting night, and they're going to lose. And that's it. I just don't know when that happens. Like, it could have happened in round 1 against VCU. All you guys were on VCU, and they didn't have it. And so they advanced. Again, they didn't have it against Wisconsin, who was a very good defensive team. Somebody eventually is going to catch BYU off, and you're going to be the game's going to be over in the first 5 minutes. You're going to know. You may as well turn it off and not watch, because if they ain't making them from the jump, they're going to miss them the whole damn game.
Something to look forward to with BYU. If Alabama does advance against St. Mary's today, it would be BYU versus Alabama in the Sweet 16.
And a
And
total
I
of
believe that
189 and a half.
that will be the highest total in NCAA tournament history. I'm saying it right now. There's no doubt about it. Both teams could score 90, no doubt about it.
Rob Christensen wants to go to the next game. St. Mary's is a 5.5-point underdog, 150.5 here on the odds logic screen in the game versus Alabama. He wants to know if we think St. Mary's is barking. And if so, how much are we playing on the money line versus the 5.5? Look, VR just said some nice things about Alabama. I have been saying all year long, Alabama is an absolute and utter fraud. Look, that first half, that first half game a couple of days ago was really, really spicy. And then guess what? Alabama was able to pull ahead.
Yeah, they struggle with Bobby Moe. The problem, okay, I won't call Alabama fraudulent. What I will call their style is less than appealing, which means they don't give a rip about the defensive end. They're just going to run you out of the gym as much as they can, literally. They do not sweat other teams who score on them because they just say, guess what? We're going to score more. So the thing is with this game here, and BP and I, when we talked this morning, said the exact opposite thing. I go, you got a lot of balls betting the under. And he goes, you got a lot of balls betting the over. I think there's more of a game script here where St. Mary's can put up 65-70 on Bama's bad defense than there is of St. Mary's defense holding Bama to around 70, right? So I lean over, and if it goes over, I think it's Bama in this spot here. I don't know if I want to lay, the points with Alabama. I mean, it feels like a nice money line parlay spot, depending on what else you choose for Alabama, because I think they win this game. But if styles make fights here, again, the tempo very early on will tell you, who's really got the edge here. But you got a lot of balls betting the under, if you ask me. I wouldn't do it.
Very lazy handicap, BP. But then why don't we just go back to what we know? Let's just take St. Mary's in the first half. What are you going to get? Plus 135 maybe on the money line? And maybe that's the play. And see if Alabama doesn't run him out of the gym. There we go. Brian S. agrees. Again, I feel like it's a very lazy handicap. But Zinno's right about Alabama. They don't care about playing defense. And maybe that's why I haven't enjoyed betting on this team.
Well, this is such a hard game to handicap because styles make fights and we don't know how the game's going to play out until it starts playing out, right? Look, this is the lowest total for any Alabama game this season. But conversely, it's the highest total for any St. Mary's game this season. That just right there sort of illuminates what we're dealing with. St. Mary's longest active ATS losing streak of any team still alive in the NCAA tournament. They failed to cover 5 in a row. I would kind of I kind of wanted like a 7 or 7.5 to bet them in this spot, though. Look, if you like Bama, you like the over. If you like St. Mary's, you like the under. Ultimately, I stayed away from this game because it's a live betting opportunity. You got to wait to see how the game plays out.
Yeah.
Because if St. Mary's is able to grind if Alabama's not hitting threes and St. Mary's has this tempo way down, then the Crimson Tide are in trouble. So that is something to look out for. You got to wait to see how the game plays out because it is such contrasting styles of play. Only time, by the way, Mary's has been a dog of 4 or more this season. They did win outright. That was at Gonzaga.
Yeah, I feel like kind of some early regret on this one. 12 seed Colorado State catching 8.5 now on the odds logic screen to number 4 seed Maryland, 143.5. I like Colorado State. I bet them, 2 days ago. And in the first half, I was going, good God, what are we doing here? I am so frustrated with them. And in the second half, they did exactly what I thought they would do and were able to pull away, get the cover, and I didn't really have to sweat it down the stretch versus Memphis. Memphis was a great second half team up until that game. I know that Colorado State, albeit hasn't played the toughest schedule, but still top, 60 defense, top 40 offense. If they make their free throws, if they get hot from 3, if they don't turn the ball over, I think they can keep it within the number here. But Art DeCesar saying that the Sharps hit Maryland early. Again, is that like more of a recency bias, you think, to how the Big Ten is played versus the Mountain West?
There's some of that. I think that there is some semblance of, the idea that the Mountain West, the 2 teams that survived because the record has been so bad are here and they won't survive 2 games. And I'll tell you what, Kelly, I don't think those people are very sharp because I like Colorado State. So they can take their sharpness and stick it somewhere else. Okay, how's that sound for you? That said, here's two things that happened. Maryland shot well over their percentages in their win over Grand Canyon. It was on Grand Canyon, loser. Maryland shot well over their percentages from the field and from three in that game. Conversely, Colorado State shot under their percentages in their win over Memphis. That should have some regression to the mean here. But as you said, the real test here is, can Colorado State make threes? Maryland is an excellent, excellent, excellent three-point defense, one of the best in the country. But yet Colorado State is one of the best three-point shooting offenses in the country. I would tell you, too, the other part of this here is inside and how much leverage they're going to have. Derek Queen, who's the big guy for Maryland, if he gets in foul trouble early and they have to take him out, then that's going to be a huge lift inside for Colorado State. This is a team that in Maryland, their coach, if you look at 2 foul participation percentages, I don't know if you guys follow that stat on KenPom. I look at it very closely because it tells you how coaches coach. They don't play a lot of guys with 2 fouls. So once he gets 2 fouls, if it happens early, Queen's going to the bench. Colorado State will have an advantage inside. Should be able to draw some free throws here. Rams feel like the play to me.
All right, guys, we got about 30 minutes until tip-off. No other show after us, so we can go as long as you guys have questions. Hanging out with the guys from the Morning Wager. Bryan Power, really quick, give you guys a little promo. Oh, you want to keep talking about Colorado State, Maryland?
What's important to say?
I do have something important to say, okay? As a matter of fact, if you'd allow me to say this, normally I don't.
Oh, you're going to tell everybody your wonderful record? Okay. He likes to do that on the Morning Wager.
Kenny and the Prez 2.0, just the younger version, and neither one of them brushes their hair. That being said.
What are you talking about? I brush my hair.
I think she's talking about Bryan Power and the Prez. Bryan Power and the Prez don't brush their hair.
I take a lot of good care of myself.
We throw a little gel in there, we slop it up. It's all right.
This is all by design. This is not an accident. This all came together by design this morning. Even the hat came by design.
You and Teddy with the scruff, BP and Prez without brushing their hair. All right, all jokes aside, give me your synopsis on Colorado State, Maryland, and then let everybody know where they can watch your show. And guys, if you have a question, please drop it in the chat.
You can watch the show right here on WagerTalk TV every Monday through Friday. Always available before lunchtime. Zinno, we usually record it between around 9 o'clock, give or take. It's out shortly after that. A lot of fun. 3 free plays each and every day. A lot of laughs. We seek to educate and entertain, not necessarily in that order. I just wanted to add one thing with this. Excuse me?
And insult.
Yeah, well, yes, there goes that as well. That is your forte. I will say this about the Maryland-Colorado State game. 4 seeds historically benefit from facing 12 seeds, as you would think. 10-4 against the number the last 14 times we've seen a matchup like this. I was on Purdue yesterday against McNeese, but to do a little comparative analysis, Kelly, between that Purdue-McNeese matchup and this one, Maryland, I think it's fair to say, is slightly better than Purdue, but McNeese is way worse than Colorado State, and we're getting a bigger number here with Colorado State. And guys, let's not bury the lead. Colorado State has won and covered 12 consecutive games. I think that's pretty important. I think that's something we need to mention. Yes, the Mountain West has historically struggled in the NCAA tournament, but Colorado State, hey, odds makers respected them. They had them as a favorite against the 5-seed Memphis. This does feel like too many points, especially because going back to what I said earlier about Duke, guys, Maryland, Zinno talked about how they shot the lights out in round 1. They won by more than 20 points. Colorado State did not win by more than 20 points in round 1. History says there's some value backing the dog in this situation.
If you're late to the party out there on the West Coast and just joining us, this is Wager Talk's last call. We're going to take you guys up until tip-off. We got 3 games left to cover unless you guys have a specific question regarding one of the earlier games. Odds Logic, open on my phone. 6-seed Ole Miss, 5.5-point underdog to 3-seed Iowa State, 144.5. Look, I mentioned how well the Big 12 teams are doing and how poorly the SEC teams are doing. And since Zinno already interjected and said that Ole Miss is suspect, I got to hear his reasoning why. I thought this line got a little too high. I think Chris Beard actually has the coaching advantage here. I know that Ole Miss struggles to get offensive and defensive rebounds. They are really frustrating, but they don't beat themselves by turning the ball over. And I can't say the same about Iowa State. Every time I lay the points with Iowa State. You know what they do? They turn the ball over 15 plus times a game. It is the most infuriating team to be laying it with. Again, as an underdog, don't mind backing the Cyclones, but I cannot lay 5.5 here with Iowa State. Zinno, tell me why you think Ole Miss is suspect.
I don't think they do well against better competition. I mean, if you look at them in the SEC this year, okay, like let's just take, for example, certain spots that they played in. Alabama, when they beat Alabama earlier in the year, okay, that was a spot where Alabama, I think, they were 14-2 at the time, and they dropped a home game. This was after they had a big two back-to-back road wins against Texas A&M. It was sort of a situational spot, like that. I think that's their best win of the year was against Alabama. I don't really count beating Kentucky, whose defense, as we talked about, is terrible. And look at the Tennessee win at the end of the year. Tennessee had everything wrapped up that they needed to wrap up at that point in time. It was the second to last game of the regular season. Didn't really matter to them. But every time they step up in class, they got beaten by Florida. They got beaten by Auburn. They got beaten by A&M. I mean, I don't see them as a really competent team. I think they're fugazi. I don't trust them to go out and beat better teams on the regular. Look, I played UNC against them. I thought UNC was going to beat them. I had Ole Miss losing in the first round, whether it was at San Diego State or UNC. So, this is a really complete and competent Iowa State team. I like them a lot. I know they're missing one of their guards who's not in. They've been dealing with that for a better part of the second half of the season. So I'm not too concerned from the standpoint, like they still managed to win games. They still managed to be very, very competent with the injuries to the backcourt. And I think they can do it here. And more than anything, it's the Iowa State defense. Like, they're going to clamp down. As you talked about, Kelly, Mississippi can't grab rebounds. So, if you're going to give me a team with the height advantage by, about 2 inches, and then you're going to give me a huge rebounding advantage, Mississippi has to make every shot. Like, you're asking them to have to shoot 45% or better from the field. If they don't, every one of those shots that misses goes in the hands of Iowa State. And that's a bad recipe. Even without their best guard, that's a bad recipe because Iowa State will be able to get up and down and put some easy buckets in against a defense that I don't think is all that good.
BP, one of the things I like to look at as far as my handicap, and it bit me in the ass with the University of Kansas, is experience. Mississippi is one of the most experienced teams in Division I basketball. Do you think that holds any weight whatsoever in the tournament? Obviously, Iowa State also very experienced.
I think if you like the Ole Miss side here, Kelly, what you're screaming from the rooftops is something you referenced before Mark broke the game down, and that's the turnovers. Iowa State, he mentioned they don't have Gilbert here, and I think that could potentially be huge because when Gilbert's not on the floor for Iowa State, their turnover rate goes up. What does Ole Miss like to do? They like to pressure the basketball. So if you like Ole Miss, what you're hanging your hat on here is the fact that Iowa State is going to turn the basketball over. Now, what concerns me about the Rebels is they have not posted back-to-back straight-up and ATS wins in over 2 months. So this kind of like as Zinno was saying, they're not a very consistent team. They're not a consistent team.
You're suspect because you can't spell suspect without SEC.
Oh, boy.
I shout
You
that
guys
from
are
the
funny.
rooftops, Bryan Power. I'll shout that from all the rooftops.
Oh, no.
Hey.
Oh, no. All right, here we go, guys.
That's my line.
We've got 2 games left we're going to get to here in a few minutes, but one game that's tipping off in 25 minutes. I just got a text question in. They want to talk about the total in UConn, Florida. I know we kind of touched on it just a minute ago, but I'd like to revisit for those maybe late joining the show. 151.5. So this one's gotten bet up since we've been doing the show. Looks like only over money. I know that there is a correlation between Florida covering and the over, UConn covering and the under, but let's not talk about which side is going to cover and just in regards to the total. Again, we know that the key for UConn winning this game is Florida not scoring 90, but that doesn't mean Florida can't score 85 and UConn 65, and this goes under the total.
Well, put it this way, I would tell you that I don't think UConn can win an over game. I think Florida can win an under game, if that makes sense, right? Because let's not forget Florida's defense is still really damn good. I told you, they're the most complete team in the tournament, despite what Bryan Power thinks. And so
that.
this is a defense here that is very, very good. And they're not going to allow UConn to make threes. They're very good inside. Look, I think there is a world where 85-70, what does that get us to? 85-155 would stay over. We more need to be in the range of 80-68, right? Like something like that, where they can hold UConn under 70, and the pace just sort of dies in the second half to keep us under 150. Yeah, I think that's possible. Like I said, I don't think Connecticut can win an over game. I think Florida can certainly win an under game and cover an under game.
All right, let's hit these last two games before we get out of here. New Mexico, 10 seed, 7.5-point underdog to 2 seed Michigan State, 148.5. I considered New Mexico this morning when looking at the Lobos, and I thought, all right, can I make a case, as you guys mentioned, for them to win outright, right? Because whenever I look at dogs, I want to know if they can win outright. And we've seen some really good first halves from some of the dogs, I bet, and it just absolutely got squandered late. New Mexico loves to play fast. They have a solid defense. They do not make their free throws, and that is my one caveat. We also know
yes, they did. They made a whole lot of them in the first round against Marquette.
There you go. They did. They did.
Marquette -3.5. I was right. Pissed off.
Go ahead, Zinno. Go ahead.
It's unreal in that game. Two things had
against Marquette. So you don't have to say to me, I watched part of that game. I had other games that I cared more about.
But there were two anomalies that happened for New Mexico in that game that weren't supposed to happen, that were outliers from the entire season. One, they were better from three than expected. And two, they made, what did they make? Like 13 of 15 free throws? They were like 90%.
And that was their best game. That was their best game free throws percentage all season long.
Part of my handicap of VCU. It was like, not VCU. Who was I? Marquette, rather. I keep confusing those two crappy schools who can't win a damn game in this tournament anyway. So, Marquette's got to be – Marquette is the most – Shaka Smart should be Shaka stupid when it comes to the NCAA tournament. Like, because he doesn't win, period. Very frustrating.
Smart's got a new nickname for next season. Can't wait to use that.
From December through the end of February, he's Shaka Smart. When March rolls around, he's Shaka stupid.
All right. Well, BP, any thoughts here on the Lobos?
I will say this much. Here's the fear with Michigan State, and I told this to BP earlier when we talked about this. Michigan State is going to have a bad shooting night that they won't recover from, just like St. John's did. That's exactly what is going to happen. Because what is going to happen is they will miss twos early, similar to what happened against Bryan. Now, Bryan was stinky.
Yeah, they looked awful in the first half.
Right. Michigan State looked terrible for the first 12 to 15 minutes of that game in the first half, and they were able to, end up, scrambling. When that happens against a good team and their twos don't fall, we know they can't make threes, and then they are out of their game script, right? Now they're chasing the whole way. That's what my fear is for Michigan State. And because New Mexico plays so fast, right, they may be able to pull the tempo even faster for Michigan State, forcing bad shots. They miss them. New Mexico gets up and down real quick and runs. And all of a sudden, Michigan State, at the 8-minute timeout of the first half is down, 26 to 15 or 26 to 18. It's like, how the hell did we get here? And so it could develop that way. That's my fear. Again, much similar to, there are teams, Kelly, at this point in time in the tournament, where you know exactly what's going to cause them to lose. You just have no clue about how it's going to happen or if it's going to happen.
Here's what I think we do. If you like New Mexico, you bet them in the first half. If you like Michigan State, you wait till the second half, because Michigan State has been on my list for the last couple of weeks as a team to bet on in the second half, and that's exactly what they did against Bryan. I had Bryant first half, took Michigan State second half, right? Like, I'm in a gambling group chat that never stops, because we got people on the East Coast, people on the West Coast. So I'm getting a text at 3 a.m. West Coast time, which is 6 a.m. I'm waking up, and next thing you know, it just keeps on going for a 24-hour cycle. And that was a great handicap. Maybe that's the same play here, Brian Power.
Look, here's the deal with Michigan State. And if you like New Mexico, you have to be concerned about one thing, and it's what you're concerned about anytime Michigan State's the opponent. Can you make threes? I have watched this Michigan State team a lot. I swear to God, you could have five Steph Currys wide open from three against Michigan State, and they'd all find a way to miss the three. Michigan State's the 3-point opponent percentage is insane. It's I believe number one in the country, if not number two. But here's the thing about what Mark was saying. We know Michigan State's going to lose eventually. We just don't know when it's going to be. I did a video elsewhere here on WagerTalk TV. 2 teams that will not win the NCAA tournament. One of them was St. John's.
Shut up.
Out already, Mark. Mark Zinno got very upset at me when I said that, but hey, I was right, buddy. And the second one
St.
was
John's
Michigan.
poor shooting that's going to do them in because they can't make 3-pointers.
Yeah, and guess what happened, pal? They didn't make threes, and they're out of here. All right, they're in the soup line. Rick Pitino, back to the Italian restaurant for Rick Pitino.
Brian
all right?
Power with the pal. That's like such like an Ohio insult. Like just wow, called him a pal.
All right. Here's why did I say this, Kelly? Why did I say St. John's and Michigan State will not win the NCAA tournament? I'm going to tell you exactly. No, I didn't, because I have historical data to back me up, kind sir. Okay. Teams that were not in the preseason AP top 25 and are top 2 seeds in the NCAA tournament, none of them have ever even made a Final Four, let alone won a national championship. St. John's and Michigan State came into this tournament with that designation. Neither was preseason top 25. Both were 2 seeds. So Michigan State is not getting to the Final Four. Do they lose here? I don't know if New Mexico's the team. I think it actually helps Michigan State that they just faced a fast-paced team in Bryant. Now, New Mexico's more talented than Bryant. We understand that. But again, it boils down to somebody has to eventually hit their threes against Sparty. I don't know if New Mexico's the team to do it. I would concur with you, Kelly. I thought it was very eloquent and intelligent what you had to say about backing New Mexico in the first half, because Sparty all year long has struggled in the first half, and then they come back in the second, much like we saw in that Bryant game on Friday.
All right. Looks like on my Splash Sports, John Murray just said that he doesn't hate using Duke today. Because I said, I don't see Duke going to the Final Four. I think they're going to lose somewhere in that bracket.
They're losing to Arizona next weekend.
I think so. That's why I have a futures bet on Arizona. So I think so. Just got that finalized. All right, guys, one last game. We are going to lose the X stream. I just got notification from our producer, and I'm sorry. I have no idea why. Twitter, come on, Elon. Why can't I have more than an hour? So let's break down the game that I laid 3.5 with. 5-seed Oregon is a 3.5-point underdog on the odds logic screen to 4-seed Arizona, 152.5. I really like this Arizona team. I laid the chalk with them 2 days ago. They've been really turning up as of late. I know that they hit a buzzsaw there with Houston in the Big 12 tournament, but nice dominant win over KU, good win over Texas Tech, both very solid Big 12 teams. Well, anyway, here's the issue with Arizona. They play small ball, right? They're not going to be hitting monster 3-point shots, and they like to play really fast. They get to the bucket. Here's a really solid Ducks defense. I like Dana Altman a lot, but I think this is where his NCAA tournament ends.
It does. And look, Arizona is going to win this game inside and on the glass. That's it. That's what they do. They are one of the more athletic teams outside of Alabama and Florida in this tournament. They got a lot of size. They got a lot of length. They can get up and down on the floor real quick. And again, it's one of these things where you want to beat them, you have to do what BYU did to them. Make shots at an abnormal rate. That's it. Because if you miss, they're getting a rebound. And they're going to move fast, and they're going to get out in transition and score. These two teams, guys, met 3 times last year. They met twice in the regular season. Arizona won them both. They got tripped up in the Pac-12 tournament. May it rest in peace. And so I like Arizona here. The number coming down from the open doesn't scare me at all. I think Oregon as a whole, again, another one of these Big 10 teams rather that I just don't trust. They've been too inconsistent all year long for me to look at them. Like, how do you go, from where they were in beating Maryland and, winning against Ohio State early when Ohio State was good. Then you lose to Minnesota and Nebraska. God, these were awful teams. They had lost 5 in a row and 6 of 7 at one point, with their only win being over last place Washington. And then they finished the season really strong. So I don't know which team you're really going to get here from Oregon, but I know that there is a Arizona team that has been much more consistent and complete all year long. So I like the Wildcats here.
All right, BP, final word on the final game. Anything you want to promote before giving us this breakdown?
Yeah, I've got one play up for today. It is a 4% best bet. We're 9-2. Mark Zinno, as you know, in the month of March, with plays rated 4% or higher.
Thing you do. It's the most annoying thing you do. Just say I got 3 plays up in the sentence. No, and you can humbly decline and just turn. Thank you. That's all you do. Hey, I got a play up. It's at WT.buzz/BP. That's all you got to do. That's it. Nobody cares. Nobody cares about what you did yesterday. Nobody cares.
When Kelly says jump, I say how high.
I like to backtrack on that. I think people do care because this is a business of what have you done for me lately? What have you done for me lately?
What have you done for me lately? As in today, not yesterday.
No, but like they want to know what you did for them yesterday. If you expect them to come back today.
Look at that face.
This is what I'll say about Arizona. I'll say this. Yeah, this is what I'll say about Arizona and Oregon.
Let me do this. Here, I can go to the leaderboard on WagerTalk.com just so you know. Mark Zinno, what have you done for me lately? 39, 26, and 0. 60% in the last 30 days. People are going to look at that and say, all right, that's what you've done for them lately.
Yes, I have.
But then they're going to look at his hat and say, what the hell is he doing? That's the other part.
The scary part is that like I've actually hit a down spot. I was even hotter than that all the way through the beginning, all the way through the end of February. It was a good run for us, right, BP? Morning Wager was crushed.
It was. Yes, we, not me. That is always the key on the morning wager. I will add this to the Arizona-Oregon breakdown, Kelly. Mark mentioned, the inconsistencies of Oregon. Well, this is what happened, okay? When they were losing, when they had that February swoon, if you will, they were facing a lot of tourney teams. They were 0-3 against tourney teams away from home. As a matter of fact, I think Purdue was in there, Michigan, somebody else. Then they got on that win streak at the end of the regular season. Why? Well, because they played the bottom of the conference. You have to go back, guys.
Rutgers, Iowa,
Washington.
USC. Yep, Washington.
You have to go back, I believe, to January 5th, which was a very long time ago, to find the last time that Oregon beat a tourney team in regulation that wasn't that overmatched Liberty team the other night who couldn't shoot. Liberty, looked like they'd never played basketball in their lives. Oregon's only win between Friday and January 5th against a tourney team was against Wisconsin, and that was a big comeback that they won in overtime. I also like to do a little comparative analysis here, guys. Maybe you agree with this, maybe you don't. When Oregon played Michigan State in the Big Ten tourney, they closed +6. I know there was a rest disadvantage involved there. Michigan State was off their bye. Oregon had played the previous day. I'm going to be honest with you. I have Arizona power rated ahead of Michigan State. So the fact that line was +6 and this one's now +3.5, that does not make a lot of sense to me. I will co-sign with the two of you. I believe Arizona a little undervalued in this one. And isn't it nice to end the show when we're all agreeing?
Yay! Finally, if this wasn't the biggest shit show of a show. And we didn't have any tech issues. I just realized we have not had a single tech issue minus the fact that VR sounded like he was underwater, which was apparently my Wi-Fi's fault. That being said, thank you to Bryan Power. Thank you to Mark Zinno. Thank you to VR. Guys, we're going to be back next week. I'll also be on Bet On It on Wednesday. We'll have a new episode out. And, of course, the Morning Wager every single day there on the WagerTalk YouTube channel. Make sure you guys hang out with these two insane people, and you can hear them argue and bicker and whatever else. Entertain. They like to call it entertain. Love you guys. I hope you have a profitable Sunday.
You should tune in more often. Because you should tune in.